favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
And welcome into Judd's Hockey Show. A rather, I guess, not really late in itself, but a nighttime edition after the Wild beats the Chicago Blackhawks by a final of, 4-3 in a shootout. First shootout of the season for the Wild. Kaprizov, Gaudreau, score. The Wild wins.
Fleury.
And they pick up a season-long 5-game, 10-day road trip. They pick up 7 out of a possible 10 points to definitely rebound from what was a very tough start at home for the first 4 games, of which the Wild won only once. And Dex, where would you like to start? This game, the last 2 games, because obviously we did not do a show last night reacting to the loss in Detroit, or the fact that the Wild injury list seems to be growing exponentially, and that in and of itself has to also be a concern.
Yeah, little stacked order of things to get to here today, but I think we should probably just start with this Chicago performance. They lose a few players here again in injuries, which is a problem for them. Now they're starting to stack up a little bit. But hey, you were able to get a win, and I think that's really all that matters here today. And even though they lost to a pretty bad Detroit, not a bad Detroit team, not a Detroit team that has any aspirations either. You should have had a win against the Red Wings. But hey, you're winning kind of ugly a little bit right now. It's not the prettiest of things. I think what stands out to me in this win, and just now kind of watching this team get through, the last 6 games or so after the poorest 3-game start to the season, is 2 things. Is Matt Boldy's a star. I mean, this guy's special. He really is just a great Robin to Kirill's Batman, or some people are maybe calling him even just as good as Kirill. I don't know if I'm ready to go that far yet, but those are good debates to have. We can have those debates, but Kirill is obviously the most naturally just talented guy on this team, and he's their superstar. Yeah. But Boldy, man, is a pretty obvious second choice. So he's been great. I think the other thing that stands out to me is kind of the emergence of players on this 4th line and bottom 6 that just seem to show up when asked upon. So, the other day it was Brandon Duhaime. You and I were talking about, he's not just a 4th liner. He's someone that has really kind of matured and is a pretty nice little solid forward. I thought Connor Dewar, again, had a really solid game again tonight. It just seems like there's cast of characters, sometimes by default because they're banged up a little bit, Marcus Foligno being the late scratch. But to me, I think just the emergence of some of these bottom 6 guys that we didn't think were going to be contributors, and the Wild are having to rely on them so far to get wins this season.
So, yeah, if you did not hear, Foligno evidently suffered an upper body injury in Detroit last night, so he didn't play in this game. Looks like Ryan Hartman, who decided to get in a fight with Tenorti, who's a big man. It looked like his shoulder popped out. Again, don't be an idiot, Ryan Hartman. You're a little guy. Don't fight. Why are you fighting a big guy? Because Marcus ain't playing? That's ridiculous. He's going to be out now, and it's just absolutely stupid. I have no problem if the Duhaimes fight or Foligno, if it's the right circumstance, because I don't love for him to fight either, just because I don't want him in the penalty box. But that was a foolish move, and I'm afraid that the Wild and Hartman are going to pay the price. Kalen Addison went down oddly in the overtime when he was tripped up by Jonathan Toews. I don't know if he's hurt or not. He goes down occasionally and then gets right back up. To your point on Boldy, and this is the interesting thing. So Dean Evison had some very pointed comments. I thought they were really interesting last night after they lost to Detroit, which is we tried to play a skill game, a pretty game, and that's really not us. Boldy I love him because he works hard. If he ever thinks he is truly talented, though, you're in trouble. It's Coyle all over again. It's that Kaprizov is your star, okay? Kirill Kaprizov is on an island by himself. And anybody else who tries to think that they're skilled like that is an idiot. That Detroit game, you lost that game because in the first 3 games, you were trying. Freddie Gaudreau, this is why I don't want him on the top line. Are you seeing more and more now with that first line? He tries to make plays. Dude, you can't. You're not good enough to. Marco Rossi, that's why I want him there, because he actually could. Gaudreau, you're there to work your ass off. Hartman did that last year and succeeded, and he just got off to a bad start, and now he's hurt. But, I want it to be made very clear to this entire team that Kirill Kaprizov's a special talent. He is your Justin Jefferson of the Wild, and everybody else either work your ass off or get off the ship. That Detroit loss to me was, and Dean's exactly right. That's what drives you crazy. I thought at the outset of tonight's game, we saw them try to get a little cute early, and then they started to work. And if they work, they're fine. They're a good team. So I love Boldy. I love what he brings. But again, tonight, 2 goals, 5 shots, played a great game. What he brings is He brings star talent with a lot of work too. And that's what I want. And if this team, anytime that they think that they are going to get by on talent, they are going to be sunk. They
Okay, Herb
deserve what
Brooks.
they get.
Yeah.
So, yes, like the fourth line, they work their ass off. Mason Shaw clearly gets it. I got to work hard. That's awesome, dude. You do. And when you do, guess what? You get goals. So, yeah, this team, I'm getting a little bit frustrated by the narrative, shall we say. And I don't think I don't think we use this consistently, but the narrative has been the Wild is trying to find its identity, Declan. They're trying to find their identity. I'll tell you what their identity isn't, that they're talented. They got some good players, and Kaprizov is. But, this whole they're trying to find their identity, if they don't work their asses off, their identity is losses. And when they do work hard, their identity is going to be wins. It's that simple. The identity question should be removed immediately. And if they're not playing like they should be criticized by everybody, including the regional sports network.
I think the word you're also looking for is cute. I think that's what Dean Evison used in Saturday's loss, the Detroit loss that we're talking about, not this performance so far against the Blackhawks. Yep. They were getting too cute with a lot of things. And look, they outchanced Detroit on Saturday, especially in that second period. I mean, it should have been lopsided. It really should have. Every angle looked like the Wild probably should have won that game sometimes in hockey, as we know. The analytics can tell you so much, and you got to watch it play out for 60 minutes. And at the end of the day, the Wild only scored one goal, and they lose the game. I think with tonight's effort and what you're going to have to see now, with especially a lot of injuries that are starting to pile up a little bit, and we'll see the severity of these play out as the Wild return home to against Montreal on Tuesday, is that work ethic type. Yes. Freddie Gaudreau might have to play elevated more minutes, but Freddie Gaudreau needs to be Freddie Gaudreau. He doesn't need to try to be a number one center. I agree with you there. Matt Boldy, yes, he is, I think, a star here. He is, I think, ascended past that Charlie Coyle Zucker level. Yes. I know it. I think he's really that damn good. And him and Kirill Kaprizov are obviously far and away the most just raw talented players from the forward side of this roster. But then the Connor Dewars of the world, the Mason Shaw, who had a great goal tonight, just work your arses off, right? Like Tyson Jost almost got a reward with the goal tonight on the power play, and hopefully, and he should be able to get one here. But like that guy's now having to work. Like, he's been moving all over the lineup. Can he find a spot where he just works hard enough that he can stay in the lineup? And I think that's back to the identity question of let's find this identity. The identity isn't going to be you're going to outskill them with Freddie Gaudreau's and Brandon Duhaime's and Mason Shaw's, who, by the way, we've sung praises of for the most of this season. But at the end of the day, you have to know who you are too. And I think it's obvious that Kaprizov and Boldy are those stars so far.
Yeah, and I guess my point on Boldy is this. In some ways, he is a young Parise because he plays really hard. Like, he works his butt off. Kaprizov can do things that the majority of humans on ice skates could never do. They just can't. Boldy is working his butt off, and he's got a ton of skill. And when you combine those things, it's a perfect storm. When Parise was young, he did the exact same thing. And I mean, that can make you a star. Like, there's nothing about being a skilled player who has to work his ass off that's going to stop them from being a star. Coyle didn't do that. Greenway has not consistently come even close to that. Tuck did. You know what? Alex Tuck, who left here, another really talented player, but he also worked hard. Kaprizov works hard, but he also can do things that you just can't, that the majority of folks can't do. So, yeah, I thought tonight's game, for the most part, beyond the fact that Anthony Cu deked Dumba out of his jock strap. I don't know if Dumba knows where his jock is. In close circuit to all of those who are saying, what a great move, because it was a great move. But close circuit to them, this is Athanasiou who did this to Dumba, okay? This ain't Savard in his prime. This ain't Gretzky. It's not, I mean, that looked like the famous move. They played the clip for years that Mario Lemieux with the Penguins in the early 90s, if I'm not mistaken, put on then North Stars defenseman Sean Chambers and just basically drill them into the ice. That's what that looked like. I mean, Matt, come on. You're better than that. So there's still some concerning things, but if you're going to get 7 out of 10 points from a road trip after a bad start, that's pretty damn good. And yes, Marc-Adnre Fleury, as Natalie says right there, was smiling. He is having fun again. And I will say this continually, his rebound from those awful first 4 periods absolutely key here, because if that doesn't happen, you aren't getting these points consistently. And that guy has played, I think, pretty consistently good hockey since he got back against Boston for the start of this road trip.
Yeah, 11 goals in the first 30 minutes of his ice time, or first 4 periods, I should say, of his season. And since then, he's been just dialed in a little bit. He's been a lot more comfortable. And yeah, you saw a happier goalie tonight, and just kind of who Marc-Adnre Fleury is. I mean, he's over there looking right at Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves, and smiling right in their face, and they're buddies. So it's great. It's not I'm a better than you kind of a thing. It's their former teammates, and I love to see that from Flower. That clearly looks like he's kind of shaken himself out of that funk. And to your point, yeah, they've gotten enough goaltending to get by. Even Gustafsson, who got the call, and I thought it was rightfully so. I kind of thought, should Fleury get the call again on Saturday? You're playing Detroit. You knew one of these games Gustafsson was going to get because of the back-to-back. Yep. I actually didn't mind the decision of going Gustafsson against Detroit, and obviously Fleury tonight. I thought that was the right move, and honestly, Gustafsson played fine. Gustafsson wasn't the reason the Wild lost to Detroit, yesterday. That was not the case. And I think in general, though, Fleury's this guy, and you're going to probably have to rely on him for 55, 60 plus games this year. I don't see Gustafsson drawing in more, but when you get a performance like you got from Gustafsson in the Detroit game, you can't ask for much more from a backup goalie like that from Gustafsson. Gustafsson is a backup goalie.
He played absolutely fine.
There really is, and I don't think something to be unlocked there, but when he's called upon, he's got to keep his team in the game, and he's certainly kept his team in the game against the Red Wings. So I thought tonight, Fleury again just continuing to look comfortable. The Wild actually end this road trip on a pretty positive note if you just want to break it down from a points perspective. Mm-hmm. And also, Judd, just looking at the Central Division, it's flipped right now. All the teams we kind of thought would be near the top are near the bottom. And right now, Chicago and Winnipeg are playing out of their mind. St. Louis is off to a pretty poor start. Colorado's off to a mixed start as well. And I think that's just the first week of the season. So the overreactions that we saw in the first few games from the Wild, which, by the way, of course, they didn't play well in the first 3 games, were indeed overreactions. And over the last week and a half or so, I think the Wild are now kind of settling in and playing their game a lot more.
Yeah, and I think the goaltending was so bad in those first three games, it was hard not to be appalled by what we saw. It was really bad. But that being said, then, they came back and played goaltending, starting with the overtime loss that Fleury played, where he played great in Boston, was fine. I think the Wild's in fine shape now. So I was just very concerned because 4 periods of the Flower, it's oh my God. And then Gustafsson, to your point, is not a 1B. I mean, he is a backup, occasional, sporadically used goaltender. Chicago is going to plummet. I'm confident. And at some point in time, probably around the trade deadline, they're going to trade Patrick Kane. I don't think they can move Taves. I think Taves is pretty much cooked. But Patrick Kane is going to be dealt. He should be dealt. It's going to get Chicago a nice haul. I think as far as the Blues go, I expect the Blues to bounce back. You mentioned the Jets. The Jets I'm not sure about. They could, they're a weird franchise, and I'm not sure they're destined to plummet. Dallas, I think, is strong. Ottinger in goal has been absolutely magnificent. So, yeah, I mean, the division is going to have a, handful of tough teams. Making the playoffs is going to be a challenge. I think this road trip, though, showed, assuming that the injury crisis is not too bad, I think this road trip from a Wild perspective showed that it's not like they're in terrible shape now. 7 points? I think they're a couple behind Chicago and another team with 9, and I think they're something like 4 back of the division lead in points. So they're fine now. Of course, that being said, you come back and get Montreal on Tuesday, and Montreal's not good, so beat them. Get your 2 points. You got 2 tonight against a Blackhawks team that I think is working its butt off right now. I think they'll backslide. But and also, how about that Alex Stalock save in overtime on Eriksson Ek?
Hell of a save.
My gosh, that was a great save. Good for him.
I always love watching him in the 3-on-3 overtime with the Wild. I mean, it's basically a 4-on-3 when you got Alex Stalock there. He'll come out of the cage and play the puck, and he's probably honestly the best goaltender when it comes to moving the puck all around, because he's not afraid to leave. But now, the Wild get 2 back at home against a Montreal team that's not really good, against a Seattle team that's obviously not very good. Right. And then, you get the classic, what Judd Zulgad loved, 5 days off between the Kraken game and when they hit the road for their West Coast road trip after that. So You'll have 2 games at home. You'll probably sit at home for a little bit, maybe
Why?
travel to. I don't know why.
Why are they
this
off for
case.
5 days? I didn't realize that till you just said that. That really ticks me off.
So yeah, Tuesday at home in Montreal, Thursday at home against Seattle, and then they're not back until Tuesday, November 8th in LA against the Kings. They have a back-to-back. Kings on a Tuesday night, the 8th, and then Wednesday night against the Ducks. And then they're also in a lot of 9 o'clock games coming up. My favorite type of games.
You love those.
Kings, Ducks, Kraken on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. So 5 days off and then 3 games in 4 days. So welcome to the NHL schedule makers.
You know what? I was so happy when I saw the opening of the season where they didn't have that stupid, hey, we're going to play 2 games and then sit for 5 days. I did not realize until you just told me now that they're going to have him sit for 5 days.
I'm going to get an evening Judd now.
Asinine. This is a Gary Bettman thing. Move the Coyotes, change the schedule. Absolute crap. But yeah, they're in fine shape now. And, I think the conference and I think the division in particular are going to be competitive. I think teams that probably got off to bad starts, like the Blues, are going to be absolutely fine. And I think that when you can go on the road and pick up a point in the first game, despite the fact it's a loss, win 3 out of the next 4, the Detroit loss, disappointing, a really good cautionary tale to not get cute, but also pretty successful. So I'm not going to complain much about this.
Quick question for you before I do. By the way, hit the subscribe button for daily Minnesota sports entertainment right here on the Score North YouTube channel. This is Judd's Hockey Show. That's Judd Zolgad. I'm Declan Goff. This is the first time you're watching us. Thank you. This is Judd's Hockey Show. Hit that subscribe button for daily Minnesota sports entertainment. If you like the purple, head on over to Purple Daily for daily Minnesota Vikings specific content as well on Apple, Spotify, ScoreNorth.com, the Score North app, a central hub for everything we do. And by the way, in 2023, we are having some openings in terms of advertisers on this podcast and on across all of our platforms. If that's something that you're interested in as a business, or some business that you'd like us to maybe contact as well, shoot us an email on the Score North app side in the feedback tab, or you can email Phil Mackey. It's pmackey@hbi.com, pmackey@hbi.com. Judd, my question for you is, if it wasn't for the injuries here, okay, so I think this guy's staying put because of the injuries to some forwards here.
Sure.
If it wasn't for the injuries, do you think Marco Rossi would be heading back to Iowa here? I don't think that he's been a disappointment so far. It's just, I don't know if him being up here either is really doing him that much good. He just kind of looks not a little lost right now, but just trying not to screw up. I feel like that's kind of the definition of how I would describe his game for the first 2 weeks of the season.
If they're not going to play him, or if they're going to stick him on the 4th line, I send him down. If you're going to play him a decent amount of time, and I don't know exactly what the ice time was tonight, he did have a great chance. I think it was in the first period right in front of the net, and shot the puck over the net. Marco, get the puck on goal. I think he should stay here and play, because I think it's going to click. I think it's eventually, because I guess my question is this: if he's going to play a sufficient amount, and yes, you're right, there are still times he looks tentative. There are times that you can tell he gets confidence and looks good. But if he's going to play a sufficient amount, get a sufficient amount of ice time, I should say, up here, I'd rather see him stay here, because I think it's going to click. I really do. And I don't know if he's playing here. I don't know if going to Iowa and playing improves him much. Now, if, again, they weren't going to play him a lot here, then yes, send him down. But I would almost prefer to see him stay here and get chances. And you know what, dude, Dex? With guys going down now, potentially, it's going to give him more of a chance. And that could be a good thing. As I said, it looked to me like Hartman's shoulder popped out. And I don't know how quick he's going to come back from that. Now, I know he was playing wing, but I mean, it is going to create more opportunities, different lines, blah, blah, blah. So, long answer short, I'd rather see him stay here as long as he's playing.
Yeah.
What was his ice time?
Someone actually just put it in here right here for us. Look at this. Look at AFC Young, a little associate producer here in the YouTube comment section. He says 13:27 of total ice time, with 45 seconds of that being the power play ice time. So yeah, he's still getting power play time. And again, I think the injuries and lack of availability of some players are probably helping his case a little bit more. It's just, yeah. And I don't think him playing not to screw up is necessarily a bad thing for him to do if he was doing too much and it wasn't working, and it was obviously that it was creating bad and negative plays, then that's worse than playing not to screw up. But I'm just waiting for him to have a big game, and I have really yet to see that.
Oh yeah, you haven't.
in the first now. The Wild have played 10 games now, I think, on the season or close to it. So I'm just waiting for that to happen. And yeah, I mean, him going to Iowa and maybe playing top line minutes gets his confidence up a little bit more. But then again, that's back to our question of, well, how much more can a guy like that, who's a 10th overall pick and supposed to be your superstar, really going to accomplish with a trip down to Des Moines?
Yeah, and if Dean and Bill thought that being here was starting to damage his confidence, that's probably a different discussion. But I would just prefer, if he is mentally strong enough to take it, I would prefer that he fights through this, because it's just, I mean, he's playing a tough position. And there's a reason why he played, 1 or 2 games max up here last season. So I'd prefer to allow him to fight through it and stay here. Ideally, at some point, if it starts to click, I really do want him, and I will continue to lobby for this between Kaprizov and Zuccarello, because you don't have anybody else with a lot of talent doing that. And Gaudreau, I'm getting scared of this one, man, because if Gaudreau, to what you said, if he's Gaudreau, okay, I get it. That's fine. It's sort of a Hartman-like situation with a different veteran this season. But when Gaudreau starts to act like he's got talent, seriously, no, I mean, against Detroit, he was trying to make moves. It's like, dude, you don't have moves. That's not your job. You are, I mean, Dean loves you because Dean, who was a hard-working Hartford Whaler and Washington Capital, looks in the mirror and sees Gaudreau.
Yeah, no, exactly.
You think Dino would have got put with Mike Gartner or some of the Whalers' top scorers, Sylvian Turgeon, and been like, oh, watch me set you up like Savard. Dino would have been benched. Deserves to be benched if he did that. So anyway, yeah, I'd prefer to see it fought through by Rossi. And when it does start to click, I would really love to see him at least dabble some time with those top 2 wingers.
Look at you and Bill Guerin should come back on here and just talk about other players from the 80s and other stuff as well, and you guys can bond over that.
Billy and I would love to talk about that.
Sure.
Left wing lock. So he played when it got really ugly for a while, though.
Yeah.
He was a young player when the Jacques Lemaire Bormore was installed.
The trap.
God, that was awful. Poor Billy, man. Turn it loose, baby. All right. I'm done.
All right, man. Hit the subscribe button again for daily Minnesota Wild entertainment. This is Judd's Hockey Show. Hey, tomorrow on Purple Daily, our hottest, strongest Vikings take for real this time from both Judd and me, and I have one as well. I might actually have a backup one just in case Judd takes mine. I don't think he'll take mine, but
I'll tell you mine before we're done.
Okay.
I'll tell you.
All right.
Don't share mine with you.
Don't tell.
No,
the
I'm not
audience
going to
right
tell.
now.
No, I'm not going to tell the audience.
Tell me off the air. Okay,
Nope.
yeah. That's good to know. Hit the subscribe button for daily Minnesota sports entertainment right here on this YouTube channel. And Pat shoots.
Listen, you guys know what this is all about, right? Right? What's it all about? Spurgey?
Hard work and having fun.
That. This is about winning.